Hey, how you doing, guys? So I'm today gonna give you a little video for FSD. I am currently running, so you guys haven't seen me in a while, but I traded in my Model 3 Performance, and now I have a Plaid. So I am on FSD hardware 3, and this is software 2026.8. Full self-drive software is version 12.6.4. So I'm gonna just give you a little small drive. It's 19 minutes. I'm working today from this is basically Brooklyn to Brooklyn, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of a POV for full self-driving in Brooklyn, New York. Of course, I don't have start to drive from park, so for you guys that want to know how to basically do it, so you can just push the car a little bit, it should engage, and then you may have to nudge it again, and there you go. See, I didn't even see that car. That's crazy. I was actually wondering right now why it didn't go, but because that car was there, and that was a crazy little bit of a blind spot, because coming out of that intersection, the way the car was, you could not even see that Volvo. But that's where the computers can see way further than a human. This video is just basically to give, people an understanding, because there's always these some people will say about hardware 3, hardware 4. I've had a hardware 4 car. When I had my Model 3, it wasn't on the most recent software. I forgot. I would have to look at one of my old videos to see what software I was running at that in particular time. But for my impression, hardware 3 and hardware 4 are not that far off. From my perspective,
camera ahead.
Hardware 3, honestly, in some cases, is better. It does certain things a little bit better. Hardware 4 does have the features of start from park. It will find a parking spot, things like that, which is great. I was watching a video the other day from another YouTuber, and I was astonished that the car actually did swerve a pothole, which was crazy good. I was so surprised. And then me talking about FSD hardware 3, and look how it's making me look bad. I don't know why I was super hesitant just now. It's not a normal characteristic. One of the things that I've noticed as well is that with hardware 3, even hardware 4, there are going to be times where the car is hesitant. It is just the way it is. You could always, in that situation, I could have given the car a little bit of gas and it would have just powered through. But that's just the way it is. I experienced that with hardware 3 and hardware 4, that sometimes it's going to be hesitant. It's indecisive. Something is making it, act a little weird. Let's see how it's going to handle the all right, this guy is waving me through. Let's see how it's going to handle this
Front
unpaved ground, which I'm taking over because it did not really. So that is an instance of, let me re-engage. FSD did not recognize the unpaved road and was accelerating as if it was a paved road. So that's important too. A lot of people complain about FSD, but they don't ever give them any feedback. You do have to give them feedback. That is one of the instances where I believe hardware 4 would have handled that a little bit better. I think that hardware 4 would have recognized that and would have had a much more slower approach. I mean, the car probably would have been fine. Probably not as smooth as a transition, which it should have been. But that's like where you could see the little bit of the differences. As in technical driving, like getting on highways, turning and things like that. I honestly sometimes cannot tell the difference between hardware 3 and hardware 4. Like I said, I feel like in certain instances, hardware 3 does certain things a little bit better. I'm looking at myself, regardless of what this car is going to do, I always still check my mirrors while I'm driving, just in case I have to take over. Once again, this is this is supervised, not unsupervised. So I always tell people to make sure that you are paying attention and things like that. So, but yeah, one of the things I noticed with hardware 3 that my hardware 4 car never really did. I had a Model 3 Performance, and I don't know, I felt like when the car would get onto the highway, it would always like side on going behind the car. Like whenever merging onto the highway, it would always go behind the car. And you know, sometimes when you're getting on the highway, you have some people that will like to they don't change their speed. They will not go a little bit faster. They won't slow down and let you in. They kind of like will be at the same speed as you, and you're getting onto the highway. You're trying to gain speed to get on, and they're like basically like matching your speed. So what that happens is like now you're basically going the same speed. So with my hardware 4 car, I felt like it would always go behind. Whereas if I'm driving and I'm getting onto the highway and I see a car kind of like matching my speed and going the same speed as me, I'm gonna accelerate. If I have a car that can do it, I'm gonna accelerate and I'm gonna go past. And I feel like the hardware 3 car does that. It definitely will do that. Same thing like if a car is hanging in my blind spot on the highway and I'm trying to merge and it's trying to get over into the left lane, or it's trying to get over into the right lane, and they're just kind of like hanging in my blind spot. I feel like my hardware 3 car would use its power and assert itself a lot more than my hardware 4 car. I don't know why. Also, simple things like this, like I'm stopped and there's times that there's a motorcycle that's lane splitting coming behind you. I noticed in my hardware 3 car that it would move over for motorcycles that's approaching from the rear, and my hardware 4 car never ever did that. It would never do that. I would have to move over myself. I would have to either disengage or whatever may be the case. It would never move over by itself, and that's a great thing, because when I'm normally driving, I'm very courteous for bikes. So when I see guys lane splitting, I always give them ample amount of space so that they can split safely. You know, some people don't like bikes and they don't give them that type of grace or anything like that, or that courtesy. So I definitely do give them courtesy and move over. So seeing the car do that by itself is pretty good. So I'm also coming from Canarsie, and I'm going to basically East Flatbush. So I see a lot of videos of people doing FSD and things like that, but they're usually not in New York City as much, or they're not in Brooklyn. So just want to give the perspective of what it would be like having a hardware 3 car driving around in New York City. I do my best not to try to intervene, but in certain cases I will have to intervene. The most that I'll try to do as well, if I don't have to intervene, is just give it a little bit of gas. I definitely would love the feature of park, being able to pull up to a customer's house and it's automatically going to park, or starting from a parking spot just a tap of the button. To me, I just don't get it though with Tesla, because that's nothing to do with camera based. Like that's not software. That's not like the computer chip. Like that's just software. Like for it to be able to start from a park and be able to find a parking spot, that's really not, like, I don't need hardware technically for that. That's why I don't understand why with this latest update for hardware 3 that they just didn't give us that it literally makes no sense, because technically you can do it. The car just is not programmed to do it, so that's what stops it from doing it, because technically I trick it to do it by just moving the car a little bit and then engaging FSD, and it actually will pull out of a spot. Sometimes I have to give it gas, sometimes I don't. I've heard another YouTuber say that it really, if a car drives by, that's usually what will allow it to, engage and start without having to push the gas to give it some go. That's one thing that makes FSD in Brooklyn and in New York so much different from, other places. You have people that constantly, walk out in the street or getting out of their cars, swing their doors open and things like that. So abruptly a lot in Brooklyn and New York City. So, for example, it just alerted that lady, was in the street. And the thing is, some people don't like that, and some people complain about FSD, slowing down and being hesitant and things like that. And I get it if there's somebody behind you, but the car is basically trying to figure out what people are doing, and you don't know what people are doing a lot of the times. I don't know if that lady was going to jump out in front of their car. Accidents happen because it's an accident. It's a lot of the times unexpected things happen. So I don't have a problem with the car a lot of the times siding on caution, because I would rather be, cautious than just gung-ho and Mad Max all the time, just running people over and running things over and putting me in a situation where it's, not being safe at all. So I don't get it where some people complain so much and it's slowing down, because that light is out. It should have picked up the other light just now. Once again, little nuances and little things that maybe hardware 4 would have definitely had no issues with, because I believe hardware 4 is better at reading lights and signs and things like that. So all I did was just give it gas. I didn't intervene, as in a sense, like take complete control over. I just give it a little bit of gas. That's why it's supervised, so you should basically always be paying attention. It's not perfect. I always tell people, because there's a lot of people that hate FSD or will bash FSD, and it doesn't, it's not perfect. I mean, as people drive, a regular human driver is not perfect. That's why there's so many accidents literally every day. I did my defensive driving course, and they were saying how many, I forgot the exact number, but they were saying how a certain amount of people die literally every day from car accidents, which is crazy. That happens every day. So there's people that are driving that make a ton of mistakes every single day, and some of these mistakes are fatal. So for the car to make mistakes in certain cases, that technically you're supposed to be supervising it, whereas if you're supervising it, you can correct that mistake. Most people do not have that option to, when they're driving, to be able to correct a mistake that they've made, or see a mistake that they're going to make and then correct it. So you're basically like an instructor that's watching and watching over. See, that's a smart move. I'm so surprised that it actually made that lane change, because this next intersection, that lane is going to change into left only, make a left. So being in that lane, you're going to then have to try to merge, like how this Dodge Dodge Durango is now going to try to merge. Instead of getting in line, he's going to jump and try to jump people. But the car sensed that, and instead of going up there and trying to merge, it found a spot and it got into the right lane, because now we're going to be able to go straight. So that's surprised it did that, but that's actually very, very good. So yeah, that's a left only, go straight. The car is going to be courteous because this guy was stuck behind this truck, or he wasn't paying attention to see that the truck has its hazards on.
Speed
Whereas I'm
camera
not gonna
ahead.
lie, I probably would
You
have
are
never been as
exceeding the
courteous.
speed.
Why is that car just sitting there in the street? I'm a courteous driver, but I'm also not that courteous for people that do not pay attention, or the people that like to see obstructions in the road and drive up to the obstruction rather, and then try to merge out and forcing you to slow down, which causes so much traffic. I just can't stand when people do that. If you're paying attention, you're looking ahead, you will see obstructions. That truck was sitting there with its hazards on. There's no reason that guy should have been right on his behind then to try to merge out of the lane. So it's making a left, and there's a person in the intersection. Takes it well. Oh, mama. Cars, once again, very courteous. I probably would have not stopped. Don't judge me. But because the car could have went by and there's a red light, but it doesn't make a difference. There was a red light, so it's not like the car could go anywhere, but the car is definitely always, once again, like I said, always going to side on the side of safety. And because it doesn't know that that's an old lady walking with a cane, it just knows that it's a person. And yeah, she probably couldn't have darted out. Maybe she could have fell. Who knows? Once again, accidents happen from unexpected things happening sometimes. So say I would have been driving, I would have just went by, and say the old lady would have fell. I could have rolled her over, where the car's like, no, let her get her space, let her walk across. There's a light that's red anyway, so it's not like me zooming up to the red light makes it any difference. So I had to stop regardless. That was actually not that bad of a stop. Like I said, it's always going to stop, do a full stop, but that was a pretty smooth stop and go. Like, it really came to a full stop. It didn't the way it looked all ways. It was so quick compared to like a regular human. Okay, why are you not going, sir? So once again, I just nudged it forward. She was waving me through. And so once again, those are the little things that I would say hardware 4, from what I've seen, I have never experienced it, from what I've seen online, is a little bit better, because people waving the car through and things like that, I've seen where the car does react to that. My car hardware 3 is not programmed to react to that, which once again, that's really not, I don't think that's a software or chip capability. Like, it's not like it's hardware limitation, it's more so programming, because the car is just not programmed to accept commands like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you can't tell me that this car could not see that she was waving. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't need the hardware 4 cameras to tell that. It's just that I think that has to do with what's programmed in the hardware 3 to be able to do. I think they programmed that into hardware 4. And if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments.
Auto. Mute memory.
No one in the crosswalk, so it's a little bit more smoother. I would have liked to see if my car would have slowed down, but I don't think it would have. I don't like how it just took that yellow. It was already basically in the intersection, and it took that yellow. Oh, so that guy was out in the street and it didn't really hesitate. I guess it didn't care for the FedEx guy. Said, listen, buddy, you out there, I'm gonna run you over. Go ahead. So I'm pulling up to my customer's house. I'm going to look for parking, but I'm probably going to take over because I do have, this car will not park itself. So I'm going to take over. I'm going to do another video. After I leave this customer, I'm going to be doing a drive to Long Island to another customer, and I'll record that driving as well. It's going to have some highway miles. Basically, I'm going to transition from Brooklyn to, to Long Island, so I'm going to be on the highway. See you guys in a bit.